Betting on sports can be hard, but hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury firm. They have over 100 offices nationwide and more than 1,000 lawyers. Their fee is free until they win. Find out more information at forthepeople.com/bestbets or dial #law, that is #529 from your cell phone, and that is FOR, thepeople.com/bestbets. This is a paid advertisement. A warmer friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Craig Hoops Peterson, now part of the Houston Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in the second segment by Curtis Rogers. He does such an amazing job over at 710 Seattle Sports to get a look at this wonderful game of college basketball. He's going to join me, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the teams that are stock risers and stock fallers. In his opinion, we're going to be taking a look at what we've seen the last few weeks in college basketball. Turning forward to a little bit of Sunday action, a little bit of what we're going to be getting this week in general in college basketball. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. If you do have a question, comment, think of an idea, whatever you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but boy, did we have a fun day of college basketball on Saturday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Now, a little bit of a note with regards to a recap. You'll notice that this is going to be a little bit more heavier to the AM games just because I got called in as the emergency catcher for VSiN on Saturday and did 4 hours there. So I was on a little bit later on during the night. So this had to be a little bit more pre-recorded. So just letting you in behind the curtain there. Not that you guys need to know, but do want to be transparent with that regard. But West Virginia continues to be one of your better against the spread teams in all of college basketball and one of the better stories in all of college basketball. They take down Iowa State this by a count of 64-57, and Iowa State has been a relatively solid against the spread team all season long in their own right at 11-6 against the spread. But now you've also got West Virginia at 11-6 against the spread, and for Iowa State they go just 1 of 17 from three-point range. In this one, the West Virginia defense continues to stifle. Javon Small comes up very big in this game. No Tucker DeVries, no promise. He gives the team 27 points, 7 rebounds. West Virginia right now 13-4, despite the fact that DeVries has missed about half the season. That's been very striking, and that's something that I certainly have been taking note of. This has been one of your most profitable teams in all of college basketball, so we'll give them a little bit of a shout out. Houston Christian with yet another cover on Saturday. They were a underdog at home against UT Rio Grande Valley, but they were the ones that were grand. 66-57 the final. Houston Christian right now sitting at 13-3 against the spread. They've actually been your best cover 8 team in all of college basketball. That moniker for much of the season has been held by St. Bonaventure, but for the Bonnies, they do fall to Duquesne. This by a count of 75-57 for St. Bonaventure, just 3 of 14 from 3, and Duquesne all of a sudden has been able to heat up 14 out of 34 from three-point range for them. Off the bench, you're able to have Maximus Edwards give you maximum effort. He was able to give the team 17 points. That has been an interesting team to follow, to say the least. And how about if we talk about a team that has just absolutely quit on the season? This is one of your worst teams against the spread in all of college basketball. It's Miami. Now, 4-13 against the spread. They got absolutely dump trucked by SMU. 117-74. I mean, it's saying UW Green Bay as teams have just really quit on the season at this point. For SMU, they go 14 of 25 from 3. For Miami, you did have 31 points out of Matthew Cleveland, and nobody else provided more than 7 points. So Matthew Cleveland, he earned his NIL benefits, and nobody else did. And for SMU, every single one of their starters in double figures in this one. Just complete and utter domination out there. And if you're looking at teams from the top 25 that did battle on Saturday, certainly you had a fun one between Creighton and UConn, with Creighton going on the road, handing UConn a loss, 68-63 the final. It's been a little bit of a herky-jerky sort of year for UConn, to say the least, but in this one, for Creighton being able to get the job done, how about what you were able to see out of Jemiah Neal, throwing in their 24 points. Ryan Kalkbrenner stepped up his game as well, 16 points, 10 rebounds. You had Neal also shoot 3 of 5 from three-point range, and for UConn, just 6 of 19 from the outside. They do end up winning the turnover battle 10-8, but they lose a rebound battle 28-25 as Alex Caravan, 8 points, 3 rebounds. He did have 3 blocks, but need a little bit more out of him. So UConn does fall in that one. The best team against the spread in the Big East has actually been St. John's. They entered into Saturday 10-7-1 against the spread, and you've really got nobody below 8-10 against the spread in the Big East as well. So that's been interesting, and I'm sure that there were some schmucks like myself that were thinking, oh, the 180 total is a little bit too high in Alabama versus Kentucky, but not the case. As Alabama goes on the road, they get the job done against Kentucky 102-97. Shame on me for thinking that this game was going to go under. For Kentucky, 11 of 27 from three-point range, 16 of 20 at the free throw line. You had 7 different guys be able to reach double figures for the team, headlined by Ortega Owe, who provided 21 points. But how about for Alabama? Between Grant Nelson and Mark Sears, a combined 49 points. Chris Youngblood, who's been a little bit rough since coming off of injury, he had 10 points off the bench as well. And for Alabama, 29 out of 34 at the free throw line. My goodness gracious, that was just absolute inferno mode out there. And for Florida, they were able to go into a little bit of inferno mode as well. 80-64, they absolutely take it to Texas. This was a little bit of a nip and tuck game there in the first half, and then Florida was really able to pull away in the second half. They go 8 of 20 from three-point range. The guy that was able to really get it done from a scoring perspective was Elijah Martin with 22 points, but Alex Condon down low, double-double, 4 steals, 12 rebounds, 11 points, and for Texas, they just have not been the same offense away from them. 4 of 16 from three-point range, and for Florida, they are now 12-5 against the spread, so they've been able to do a really nice job on that respect. For Vanderbilt, they are now 12-6 against the spread. They take down Tennessee 76-75. For Tennessee, they shot it well from 3, 10-21 from the outside. They shoot 17 of 21 at the free throw line, but for Tennessee, they also do lose the rebound battle by kind of 29-25. As for this Vanderbilt team, the hero in this game was Jalen Carey. Down low, 14 points, 10 rebounds. He did a really good job of being able to haul in those boards. 18 points out of Jason Edwards was just enough to be able to lead the way and be able to get the job done for Vanderbilt. So an absolutely massive win for them. And then out there in the Big Ten, the Midwest teams that hit the road, they did a solid job. Purdue, they're able to get a 65-58 win over Oregon, just a second under that Purdue has played in Big Ten play thus far this season. Overall, they've had a few more than that, but I'm talking conference play only. But for Purdue, where they got it done was at the free throw line. 25 out of 30 at the charity stripe. They shot just 2 of 12 from three-point range. Meanwhile, Oregon, 7 of 29 from three-point range, and they lost the turnover battle 16-12. So a nice win for Purdue, and a nice win for Wisconsin, 84-69. They take it to USC. For Wisconsin, they haven't even shot it amazing from 3 this season. They go 9 of 28 from three-point range, but John Blackwell, 28 points in this one for Wisconsin. They win the turnover battle by kind of 16-12. Then they won the rebound battle 27-25 as St. Thomas was able to spy this USC team with 19 points, but not enough in this one. What has been a big trend in all of college basketball this season has been the under rate with Kansas. They entered into Saturday having played just 1 over thus far this season. Well, congratulations, as they are now up to 2 overs as they take it to Kansas State. They don't cover the spread, but they do get the win, 84-74 the final in this one. As for Kansas, they do go 6 of 16 from three-point range as Hunter Dickinson, Zeke Mayo, they were able to provide 25 and 24 points respectively. And for Kansas State, the way that they were able to remain lively, Coleman Hawkins filled up the stat sheet. He had 10 assists, 7 rebounds, 15 points. So rock solid effort from Kansas State to be able to get that cover. Houston, they got a massive scare on the road against Central Florida. Central Florida is able to hold in there, but they're unable to get the job done outright, 69-68 the final. Central Florida was up double figures at one point in the first half, and looked like Houston might be able to run and hide when they were able to get that lead with about 5 minutes remaining in the second half, but came down to the final possession in this one as Houston just 3 of 16 from three-point range. And for this Houston team, the way that they were able to get it done, they did a great job on the offensive glass. 18 offensive rebounds. They win the turnover battle as well by kind of 13-8, but this was a nice performance down low from Mustafa Thiam, who was able to give UCF 18 points in this one. And then for Houston, it was Juwan Roberts, his 21 points, 9 rebounds that propelled them to victory. For Auburn, big giant scare on the road against Georgia, but they find a way to persevere. 70-68 the finalists. In this game, it was a three-point shooting that really took hold. Tahaj Pettiford off the bench, 5 of 7 from three-point range, 24 points. Cheney Johnson, who's really been filling in for G&I Broom, only about 2 points in this one, so obviously a bit of a drop-off there. And for Georgia, they themselves go 7 of 20 from three-point range, but they lost the turnover battle 12-11. They lost the rebound battle 39-38, and Asa Newell, the top scorer for this team, a star freshman, 16 points, 10 rebounds. Another relatively nice performance out of him. And how about a nice performance out of this team? Xavier, the X-Men, they've been a better over team this season. They played very much an under, but they got the job done against Marquette. 59-57 the final. Xavier goes just 2 of 17 from three-point range, but they had Zach Fremantle on their side, and he was able to supply a double-double. 14 points, 10 rebounds for Xavier. They actually lose their rebound battle 39-37, but they win the turnover battle 13-11. He did have 18 points out of Javid Joplin in this one for Marquette, but Cam Jones, relatively pedestrian. 11 points, he did have 6 assists, but 4 turnovers in this game as well. So Xavier finds a way to persevere. They do get the job done, and also being able to get the job done and being able to persevere is another over in a South Dakota game. They have played 15 overs to just 2 unders this far this season. 103-77. North Dakota State goes on the road. They get it done against South Dakota. And North Dakota State also has been a very good cover team for you as well. They've also been a very good team to the over thus far this season as well. But for South Dakota, my goodness, this team is just playing all sorts of overs, and they're really playing no defense whatsoever. As Jakari White on the side of North Dakota State, he was able to supply the team with 32 points. So you got yet another over out there. St. Thomas has been a really good team to the over as well. As I'm recording this, we shall see what they get out of Denver. But entering into Saturday, 12 overs, 3 unders, and a push out of them. North Dakota has been one of your better over teams in all of college basketball. We shall see what we're going to be able to get out of them moving forward. But they're up to now 14 overs and 4 unders after they take it to UMKC, 76-72. The final, this total closed at about 144.5. And some late game fouling that was able to get you over on this one, as Munir Panam was able to give you 21 points. So you got just enough for an over out there. Meanwhile, along with Kansas, another team is 2 overs to just 15 unders thus far this season, and that'd be Cincinnati. And Cincinnati was able to play yet another under on Saturday as well. As for Cincinnati, they do get the job done against Arizona State. This by kind of 67-60. Spread was 10.5, so they don't cover that. But total is 137.5. Stays well under the total, as these two teams won a respective 6 of 22 and 5 of 22 from three-point range. And for Arizona State, they do lose the turnover battle 14-7, but surprisingly, they won the rebound battle by a count of 42-33. So Arizona State able to hold in there, as Jaden Keatons, he was able to give you 15 points, 14 rebounds. So a really nice effort on the glass. If you're looking at the Big 12 as well, it's been a little bit of a rough year for Colorado against the spread. They lose to Oklahoma State, this by a count of 83-73, so certainly a team to be keeping note of. It's been a rough year for a lot of ACC schools. I mentioned Miami, and they've been your worst cover team out there in that conference, but there have been quite a few teams that have been, shall we say, less than savory to say the least. And for North Carolina, they lose outright to Stanford, this by a count of 72-71. North Carolina now 7-12 against the spread, as Jalen Blakes was able to hit a game-winning jumper to be able to propel Stanford in this one. For Stanford, they lose the turnover battle 8-5, but they win the rebound battle 32-31. And Maximine Radon, 25 points, 4 blocks, 13 rebounds, and at 6'11" / 7 feet tall, he's able to pop it from 3. Only went 3 of 12 in this one, but I mean, another nice performance out there. Clemson has been a rock solid team though, and they on the road get the job done against Pittsburgh by a count of 78-75. Been a little bit of an up and down year for them, but 14 of 27 from 3-point range. Jay Sonner, he goes 5 of 9 from 3-point range, throws in their 20 points. That allows Clemson to be able to get the job done. And for Virginia, they've not been a great cover team at 7-11, but this team was catching right around about 15.5 points against Louisville. They did cover that game 81-67, so he also got an over in that game, but Louisville starting to emerge a little bit more in this conference as well, so we shall see what they're going to be able to do a little bit more moving forward. If you're taking a look at more of those, shall we say, unranked teams out there in the SEC, Oklahoma, they finally get a cover within the conference, 82-62. They take down South Carolina. It had been a long time since they had gotten a cover, as they go 8 of 17 from 3-point range. For South Carolina, they actually go 9 of 24 from 3, but they lost a turnover battle 16-12. So Oklahoma, after 4 straight losses, after starting off 13-0, they're able to break the dry spell. And for this Arkansas team, man, it has been rough for them against the spread thus far this season. They have been a bottom 5 team against the spread in all of college basketball, and they do not cover against Missouri, 83-65. Missouri all over them. Arkansas now 4-13 against the spread thus far this season. Actually, check that, 4-14 against the spread thus far this season, as Missouri 11 of 23 from 3-point range. You had Caleb Grill off the bench give the team 17 points, and for Arkansas, 5 of 23 from three-point range. They lose the turnover battle, and quite frankly, it's been a little bit rough for them thus far this season. So that was a little bit less than tremendous. If you're looking at some of your other better teams against the spread in terms of being able to get you some covers and be able to get you some money, how about Fairleigh Dickinson and the way that they have not been fairly priced thus far this season? Fairleigh Dickinson, they are now a whopping 12-4 against the spread, though they do not cover on Saturday. Central Connecticut, another pretty solid cover team, 71-60. They do find a way to get the job done as Fairleigh Dickinson just 10 of 32 from three-point range. They lost a rebound battle by kind of 39-34 as well, so no cover out of them. Elon has been one of those good cover 8 teams as well. They're now 13-5 against the spread, but Delaware did get them on Saturday. This by kind of 79-74, as Elon was about a 1.5 point favorite in this one, and John Camden, 20 big points out of Delaware, and Delaware starting to surge a little bit more as well. This has been an Illinois State team that has been relatively good against the spread. They're currently sitting at 12-5 against the spread. They get the win against Missouri State, but they do not cover that closing number that in a lot of places that was hovering more in their neighborhood, about a 9.5, 74-68 the final. And for Missouri State, they got up early in this one. They really relinquished that lead in the second half, as Illinois State from three-point range, 10 of 27 from the outside, but they were able to get 19 big points out of Johnny Kinzinger to be able to power them to victory. And for Drake, how about the Bulldogs and the way that they were able to take it to Indiana State, one of your top over teams in all of college basketball? Indiana State has now played all but 3 of their games to the over. 71-53 the final is for Indiana State, 4 of 23 from three-point range, 19 turnovers to 18 made field goals, so less than savory there. And then one of our old favorite fades, Mississippi Valley State. Well, shock, shock, surprise, surprise. They did not get the job done against Bethune-Cookman, 83-58 the final. This is a circumstance where Mississippi Valley State was able to do enough for the over, so that's a little bit of a rarity. But Bethune-Cookman was about a 23.5 point favorite. They were able to cover this number, and I do not remember the last time I've seen Bethune-Cookman as a 23.5 point favorite. But against the spread for Mississippi Valley State, they just have not been able to set the numbers high enough. They are now against the spread 5-12 this far this season. Somehow, some way, Alabama A&M has been worse against the spread. They've been one of your worst against the spread teams in all of college basketball this far this season, as they entered into Saturday just a hearty 3-11 against the spread. They lose to Alabama State at home, this by kind of 69-65. Now, this was a number of 3.5 in a lot of spots, so depending upon your closing number, they were able to get up to 4-11 against the spread this far this season. And Texas Southern, they're now 5-10 against the spread. They've not been able to cover a lot of numbers, but were able to do so against Alcorn State as an 8.5 point favorite, 66-57 the final, as got a lot of less than profitable teams out there in the SWAC, though. Bethune-Cookman, who did pick up that cover, now 11-6 against the spread. And if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in college basketball right now, do keep in mind this is with some of the PM games still remaining in college basketball from Saturday, but we have been seeing quite a 50-50 split, I guess you could say, with regards to the totals, as we have seen 160 overs to 158 unders, again, with a few games pending from Saturday, so only about a 50.3% rate to the over. Pretty even Steven there, but it's been all about the underdogs recently. Them hitting at 52.9% going into the night slate on Saturday, 166, 148, and 5 against the spread. And if you're looking overall this college basketball season, right now, it's been a nice even split with regards to overs and unders. 1,503 overs, 1,492 unders, so you've got a 50.2% rate to the over. Well, it's been an underdog season. Them hitting at just below 51%, 1,520, 1,475, and 43 against the spread. So that's where we're seeing college basketball right now, and that's what we all got on Saturday. Now let's take a look at what we're getting just all across this great game of college basketball in the Big Ten, in the SEC, and so much more with our good friend Curtis Rogers, who does amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports. Next, right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Curtis Rogers aboard. He does such a tremendous job over at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball, and really follows a little bit of everything, whether that be on the baseball front with the Seattle Mariners, the Seattle Seahawks, who should have an interesting offseason, the Seattle Kraken, list goes on and on. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at a kid from Ken. And Curtis, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Greg, always happy to hop on with you. And boy, what a weekend of hoops action we saw. Just a slaughterhouse for any team that was pretty much in the top 25 over the course of this weekend. Looking forward to diving into all of it and just recapping what we saw.
Absolutely. And Curtis, you're now a Big Ten guy with covering Washington, which that's very strange to still say, but we actually saw the road teams in the Big Ten this week do a rock solid job. Purdue goes on the road, they get it done against Oregon, and previously they had gotten it done against Washington. I'm not going to make as much out of that, but that said, Wisconsin also goes on the road against USC as well. What have you made out of this? Because we've noticed West Coast teams, when they've went out east, they've had a rough time, but we're noticing these Midwest teams go on the road, and they've had a little bit of success thus far in Big Ten play.
Yeah, they really have. And credit to Purdue. Getting out to that slow start against Washington, they were able to put that behind them and then really pull away in the second half. It is an interesting point you make there where the teams that have traveled west have had a much easier go of it than the teams that have traveled east. I wonder if maybe, especially that LA trip this time of year, is probably a welcome reprieve for a lot of these schools that are in the plains, that are in these icy conditions, the Great Lakes schools, teams like Maryland and Rutgers that are on the eastern seaboard. That trip might be a little more welcome this time of year than, say, a West Coast team going east. We heard Mick Cronin gripe all week long, really the last couple of weeks, about just the toll that their travel schedule has taken on them. He's mentioned that they've seen the Statue of Liberty twice in the last 3 weeks, something that I can't imagine many previous UCLA teams have ever had over the course of a season. So I do kind of wonder, if that West Coast trip is maybe a little easier than, say, the teams that are going west to east, don't have to readjust your body clock so much. Maybe the late start times. I know of that Purdue-Washington game. That was a 6:30 Pacific tip time, which would have been about 8:30 Indiana time if you want to talk about body clocks and whatnot. So I think going west might be a little bit easier on these schools than going east, but still, it's all brand new for everybody. This is the only set of results that we have to go off of, but I think it's a very fair point to make, at least at this point of the Big Ten schedule.
Yep, it certainly has been interesting to say the least. And I mean, just what do you make out of the UCLA team in general? Because we did see them on Friday absolutely take it to Iowa, but I mean, that's been one of the most interesting stories in all of college basketball because it feels like Mick Cronin is trying to get his entire team to hate him. I'm not sure what sort of a strategy he's trying to deploy. It's like in the old movie Dodgeball. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. But I mean, Mick Cronin, you talked about him talking about the travel. He's come on and he's pretty much not really rubbed anyone the right way. And I'm very curious to see how this UCLA team responds because they look good at the beginning part of the season, but it's toilet bowl since January 1st.
Yeah, that 4-game losing streak where they were losing to Nebraska and Maryland. I mean, it was awful. The game against Michigan where Cronin had that viral clip at the end of that blowout loss to Dusty May's club. I think UCLA is a team that is not playing up to their talent level right now. I do think that win against Iowa was a nice one. They've got a big game coming up against Wisconsin on Tuesday. And then you've got some familiar foes, 3 straight against the West Coast Pac-12 Big Ten schools. Look at me, slipping up saying Pac-12, but Washington, USC, Oregon. Those are going to be opportunities for UCLA to get some victories. That Oregon game is going to have a really contested one on January 30th. But I think this UCLA team, they definitely have had the talent for sure, considering the start to the season that they got off to 10-1 with, really quality wins, Arizona and Oregon at that point of the schedule. So I think they are still a good team. I think they have the talent capable of getting to a Sweet 16. But like you mentioned, Mick Cronin, his motivational tactics, I wonder if he just kind of sees this team maybe going through the motions and is like, what can I do to get under these guys' skin? How about if I just question them every time in the media and belittle them, and maybe I can get them to hate me, and that gets a little bit more emotion out of these guys? I don't know. It's bizarre, the kind of tactics we've seen Mick Cronin use really in the past, but this year especially. He seems especially feisty. They're 12-6 right now, but I think they got opportunities to make some ground up here in the Big Ten. You've got a game against Wisconsin, which you get that win. That's a quality win in the eyes of the selection committee. You've got 3 straight against familiar foes in Washington, USC, and Oregon. They've already beaten Oregon once this season, so you could get the season sweep of them on January 30th. That's a home game at Pauley Pavilion. So there's going to be chances for UCLA to right this ship for sure. I think it is very much in the realm of possibility that they're at least 15 wins going into that Michigan State game on February 4th. But yeah, right now they have got to get right. A win against Iowa, that is a nice win, just blowing the doors off the Hawkeyes. But this UCLA team, Greg, I think has been playing below their talent level here as we approach the end of January.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see what we get out of them as Curtis Rogers, who does such tremendous work over at 710 Seattle Sports, is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Soups. And I think that it is so interesting to look at these stock risers, stock followers, because certainly UCLA is one of these stock fallers as of right now. I think I'm very fair in saying that. But that said, who are a few teams are either growing on you right now, or you're starting to feel a little bit diminished on them? You're starting to feel a little bit more tepid about them.
One of the most impressive wins I saw on Saturday was West Virginia beating number 2 Iowa State. Iowa State has looked like a machine at times this year. West Virginia, obviously, dealing with the injuries to DeVries and whatnot, but to see them get that big win in West Virginia, I thought was a really impressive victory for them. That's going to go a long way in the eyes of the selection committee. Even though they did lose to Auburn, I thought Georgia looked really good at times on Saturday. Really, really fighting, clawing their way against the Tigers there down to the very last couple seconds of that game. And then how about that win Alabama picked up against Kentucky? I mean, Kentucky, you got to think the Wildcats this season are thinking they're lucky stars that they had the coaching change that they did, seeing John Calipari's Razorbacks struggle the way that they have here to start SEC play. But, I mean, Alabama, they're looking like a rock-solid Final Four team. Mark Sears, one of the great leaders in this world of college basketball. The Crimson Tide, so competitive. Nate Oates has his team playing really well right now. So I'm stock up on Georgia, even though they had the loss to Auburn. That Auburn team is going to be so, so tough this season. John I. Broome, just a phenomenal talent leading them. But Alabama, boy, the Iron Bowl of basketball. We're used to the Iron Bowl in football being a little more competitive, Greg, but who would have thought this year in basketball we'd see these two teams just absolutely, wreck shop in the SEC?
Who thought that we would see 0 SEC teams in the national championship in football, but we certainly have a lot of contenders out there in college basketball right now. So just a changing of college sports in general, and that's sort of the fun of it. And just how do you take a look at this SEC right now? Because you mentioned it with Auburn and Alabama. That's been impressive, but Tennessee is a team that has been growing on me, even with their loss against Vanderbilt. Like, I look at 1 through 16, and other than South Carolina, every one of these teams has impressed me in some form or fashion. I keep going to Florida, thinking that they're a pretty rock-solid team. Mississippi State is a team that's growing on me as well. That conference, just night in, night out, is a gauntlet. It almost feels like when we had the 10 teams in the Big 12, only now you've got 16 teams in the SEC, and every one of them is a juggernaut, sans South Carolina.
Yeah, no enough in this conference at all. You bring up Florida. Florida's an interesting one. They had their win against Texas. Their coaching situation is weird in that we still don't know what Todd Golden's future looks like. Then this week, the Torian Green news, their assistant coach with that program for a long time, dating back to his playing days with the Gators. But who knows what that situation is going to look like as the weeks progress here, and being able to play really fantastic basketball this season. I just think right now in the SEC, you look at this conference, it's not out of the realm of possibility we see, 6 or 7 of these teams advance to the Sweet 16. I mean, just think of all the NCAA tournament units that this conference is going to rack up. I feel very confident in saying that a lot of these teams can advance and go far in the NCAA tournament, which, is just going to be just a huge, huge windfall of cash for them, over the next few years, because you can see a Final Four run out of Auburn. You can see one out of Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee. That's 5, 6 teams right there. You can only get 4 to the Final Four, but you can make a strong case for all those teams to make deep runs in the NCAA tournament.
I love the phrasing there as well, because in sports betting, when you're up and down bets, we always call it units as well. And my goodness, if there were units for college basketball comparing it to betting, the SEC would right now be the Billy Walters of it all. They have been absolutely impressive with what we've been seeing out there. As Curtis Rogers, who does an amazing job over at 710 Seattle Sports, he is joining me on Coast to Coast Soups. And just what do you make out of the West Coast landscape of things as well? Because the Mountain West has been very fascinating with a lot of ups and downs for so many of these teams. And then obviously your Gonzaga Bulldogs. They take that loss against Oregon State State a few days ago. I think that unlike last year, they should be fine for the NCAA tournament and everything like that. But I think that Gonzaga is such an intriguing team because I had expectations for them coming into the season, and I still think that they can make a run in March, but it's looked just a little bit strange for them thus far this season.
I thought they were going to breeze their way through the WCC this season. That has not been the case. I do kind of think it's funny that with them going to the Pac-12, here soon, they got the ultimate Pac-12 baptism in losing a game in Corvallis, a game that they should have won. That was always a daunting road trip for any contending Pac-12 team in the old Pac-12. So to see them lose in overtime to the Beavers, I mean, that just is very, very funny and just kind of like, oh, Oregon State still has that magic every now and then at Gill Coliseum. But I like Gonzaga's win against a good Washington State team, beating them pretty handedly, 88-75 back last Saturday. I think the Zags, they get punished, I think, harder more than any team when it comes to Selection Sunday if they don't run through the WCC, if they don't just have a cakewalk through conference play. I think Gonzaga right now is probably going to be on that 4 or 5 line come Selection Sunday, whether that's, a little low for them. Kind of remains to be seen. I mean, you look at just how good they were on the non-conference play, blowing out Baylor to start the season. We all saw that game, and it was like, oh, my God, this Gonzaga team could really challenge for a national title. And I still think they have that capability. I still think that they could absolutely go on a run here, but they just got to get right. They're losing a lot of these close games to Kentucky, to UConn, to UCLA, to Oregon State. Get those games going your way, and all of a sudden now you're looking at a team that could really string together a lot of wins and on all these quality opponents here come conference tournament time, come NCAA tournament time.
Yep, absolutely. Gonzaga is going to be one of those teams to take a look at in the West Coast. And are there any other West Coast teams that you're really taking a look at, whether that be in the WAC, the Mountain West, whether that be even in the Big West as well, which there have been some fun games out there in the Big West thus far this season. Any other teams that are really catching your attention right now?
Well, I mean, you look at what Utah State's been able to do with Jared Calhoun taking over for Danny Sprinkle, 16-2. They have not skipped a beat this season. They look like, again, a really, really solid contender in that Mountain West. Them and Richard Pitino's New Mexico Lobos, them picking up a big win over Boise State the other night. Those two teams, I think, stand out above the rest in the Mountain West. I really think that those two teams could very easily find themselves getting an NCAA tournament berth. I don't know how many teams in the Mountain West this year are going to get a berth. I think right now you look at those two, maybe San Diego State, if they can kind of sort things out a bit here, sitting at just 11-4 right now, but they're going to need a few wins here or there to get things going. In the WAC, Utah Valley, they're playing really well right now. They've won 8 straight. I like what they're doing. Always have my eye on Seattle U, making up some ground that they lost in the non-conference. They're 2-1 to start their WAC schedule. And I feel like Utah Valley is a team that could really, really do some big things. And then how about in the Big Sky, you've got Northern Colorado, the Fighting Dalton Connects, winners of 7 straight. I think they're a really fun bunch. It is kind of a bummer to see Eastern Washington take their lumps, especially considering how great they have been the last couple of seasons. Obviously, with David Riley moving over to Washington State, taking a few of those guys that really helped out over the last couple of years. They've taken their lumps this season, sitting at just 6-11, even though last 2 seasons, they were far and away the best regular season team in the Big Sky, just could not cap it off in the Big Sky Conference Tournament. So as we know, that when it comes to conference tournament time, it really doesn't matter what you do in the regular season in conferences like that. So Northern Colorado and Montana, getting off to these solid starts in conference play, I think there's only going to be room for one of them come Selection Sunday.
Yep, there is sadly only going to be room for one of them, but Northern Colorado, they have been able to get things cooking on offense, and Roy's cooking with some gas when you're aboard, Curtis. You do such a great job taking a look at this great game of college basketball, but you really do a great job with a little bit of everything out there in the Pacific Northwest. So let the good people at home know it's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you can follow along on Twitter and Instagram at A Kid from Kent. There's plenty of college basketball to go around this time of year. Gonzaga in Washington State, the WCC, they're fighting for their lives. Washington, they're going through it right now. Really tough start to their Big Ten life. And then also mention Eastern Washington, Seattle U. It's a college basketball hotbed up here. I love it. Just the Pacific Northwest hoop scene. It is a blast to cover day in and day out. And Greg, always enjoy talking it with you on this podcast. And I look forward to our next time because it's always a blast doing it.
Oh, it certainly is. Curtis, one of the best in the business of taking a look at this great game of college basketball every single time he joins me, lends such amazing insights, and did so once again today. So big thanks to Curtis for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. And we're back in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Curtis Rogers, who does such an incredible job over at 710 Seattle Sports, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. Every single time he joins me, lends such great insights, did so once again today, so a big thanks to Curtis for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at GNet_D1, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. Today it's pretty much time order. We've got nothing on the extra games board. Sadly, our last game tips at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, so a little bit less than tremendous in terms of the night slate, but you know what? We've got some college basketball. We've got some money to be made, and let's get started with 8:31, 8:32 on the card. It is Maryland. They play us to Nebraska, and Nebraska does find themselves as an underdog of 8.5 to 9 points, and tonight's game, it is 146.5, and I'll be writing this one up. Hopefully we can get some better luck on these than we've had the past week or so, but that said, did somebody total 142.5. I'm in on the under. This is a Maryland team that continues to be in the top 10 nationally in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Now, Maryland has throttled up a little bit in terms of their tempo from past years. Maryland, in terms of total possessions per game, they're hovering right around that neighborhood, about 100th. And for Nebraska, they're right in that neighborhood as well, about 128th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. But this has also been a Nebraska team that has been a top 70 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Both of these teams in the top 100 with regards to defensive rebound percentage. And with this Nebraska team, they're just very hit or miss with regards to their three-point shooting, as when they've been in a road/neutral court venue, they've only been able to shoot about 30.8% from three-point range, so they've been pretty rough with that regard. You just don't know what you're going to get out of Connor Essegian night in and night out. This guy, over his last 8 games, he's had double figures in like 3 of them. He's scored 6 points or fewer, and I think 4 or 5 of them as well. Like, Connor Essegian is just all over the place. He's either going to give you 5 or 25 points. You just don't know which it's going to be. The constant for this team has been Bryce Williams. He's been able to supply Nebraska with 19 points, throws in their 3.5 boards from three-point. He's been able to shoot 40% from 3, and his season overall for the season shoots about 40% from 3, but again, he'll either go 1 of 10 or he'll go like 5 of 5 from 3-point range. You just don't know what it's going to be. And then Juwan Gary down low has been able to give you about 4.5 boards, 12 points per contest, like what he's able to bring to the table. Flip side, this is a Maryland team that they should be able to own the paint in this one, as you've had a pair of guys in Derek Queen along Julian Reese who have been able to combine for about 16.5 rebounds per game. You don't get a lot of three-point shooting out of Reese, but you do have Jacoby Gillespie, who's able to shoot about 42% from 3-point range. He has supplied the team with a little bit over 4 assists per game, and Maryland still does a good job of being able to win the turnover battle. This is a team that is in the top 30 with regards to turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They themselves only turn the ball over about 10.5 times per game. I do think that for Maryland, they should be able to get the job done in this one, as I did set them as an 8.5 point favorite, though I do think that once you get to a 9+, it does start to get a little bit lofty. We have noticed that Maryland has warped their metrics just a little bit by beating up on some of these lesser teams, and against the better teams, they've been having a little bit more of a tough time. This has been a unit that has gotten to at least 70 points now in pretty much all but one of their games thus far this season, so they've been pretty consistent with that regard. But this is a Nebraska team that's playing a little bit more slowly on the road. I do think that Nebraska going to be able to bounce back after taking a few losses. That Purdue loss was less than tremendous, and then the loss against Rutgers, I do think is going to lead to them slowing down a little bit more, locking down, giving Braxton Maya, Berkey, Bontuso a little bit more minutes down low. So I'm in on the under, and I'm going to be willing to take 9+ here with Nebraska. 8:33, 8:34 on the betting betting board, it is Illinois. They are on the road against Michigan State. Michigan State is a 3 to a 4-point favorite. Total last game is 156. Somehow line at 2.5. I'm going to be willing to take the points with Illinois. This Illinois team continues to be a top 20 team in the country. There's points allowed on a per possession basis. They now have Gasparis, Jacques Sunis back in the fold as well. He has been oh so versatile for the team. 15 plus points, 5 plus boards, 5 plus assists. I absolutely love what he's able to bring to the table for the team. And Tomislav Ivisic, I think, is going to be able to keep this team lively on the glass, as this has been one of the best rebounding teams in all of college basketball. In Michigan State, Simon Zapala has been able to give you about 5 boards, a block plus per contest. Cohen Carr has been able to do a nice job of being able to haul in there quite a few rebounds as well. And Jackson Kaler has also been able to do a nice job as well. Kaler has been your main rebounder with about 8 boards per contest, but up and down the boulevard, you've got a lot of rebounding for a Michigan State team that just frankly hasn't shot it well from 3-point range. I wish I could put it any other way, but it's a team that's currently still outside the top 320 with regards to their 3-point shooting percentage. Now, they don't allow you to get a second chance opportunity. In their home games, they're allowing opponents to rebound only 19.6% of their missed shots. That is a top 10 mark in all of college basketball. And you do have one guy that's been able to shoot it well from 3-point range in Jace Richardson, who's been able to shoot north of 40% from 3-point range. Jaden Akins is really the lone guy that gives you north of 10.5 points per contest. He's been able to give the team about 13, 14 points per game, like what he's able to bring to the table, despite the fact that his 3-point shooting has been a little bit hit or miss. And speaking of being a little bit hit or miss, Kylan Boswell all season long, though, he's been able to emerge a little bit more recently. He's been giving the team 12 points, 5 boards, 4 assists per contest. He's been able to throw in their double figures in pretty much all but one of the team's last 8 games, so I've been liking what I've been seeing out of him. You've got Tomislav Ivisic, who I do think is going to match up down low pretty well, and Ben Huber-Rickes, when you had Jakanuskis out of the fold, he was able to step up in a big way, gives you 9 points per game, shoots about 37.5% from 3, but again, this Illinois team doesn't necessarily shoot it well from 3 themselves. They're only shooting about 33.5% from 3-point range, though. They themselves a top 10 team with regards to opponent's 3-point shooting percentage. This has been an Illinois team that's been one of the most dominant rebounding teams in all of college basketball. And though this Illinois team is really looking to run, they're a top 40 team in terms of total possessions per game. I do think that both of the defenses are very much going to be able to hold up in this game. So it is a circumstance where I set my total at a 152.5. I'm in on the under, and I'm willing to take 3+ here with Illinois. 835, 836 on the betting board. Temple, we give our own to Lane Kiffin. Go Owls. They are going to be playing us at Tulane, and Tulane does find themselves as a 4.5 to a 5-point underdog. Total last game between 149.5 to a 150. And with regards to Tulane, I set them as just a 2-point underdog. I'm going to be willing to take the points with Temple. They still just don't have a point guard, because I thought that Lynn Greer was going to be that. He was suspended towards the beginning part of the season, and ever since he's come back, he really has given the team a whole heck of a lot of nothing. He's only giving you like 4 points and assists or 2 per contest, but it's been all about Jamal Mashburn Jr. playing ISO basketball, as he's shooting 42.5% for 3, 20.5 points, 2 assists, 3 rebounds per game, and it has been a Temple team that has been able to do a relatively rock-solid job in terms of finding a way to the free throw line. They've been a top 10 team in the country in terms of free throw attempts per game, where they're really getting handled, though, is on the glass. Despite the fact that Steve Settle is able to give you north of 7 rebounds per game, this is a Temple team that they're just giving up way too many second chances in terms of percentage of missed shots that result in an offensive rebound for opponents. They are right now ranked 275th in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, Tulane is about 157th in the country with this regard. And if you look at Tulane in a roadside shoot court environment, in terms of their defensive rebound percentage, they do rank in the top 40 with that regard, as this Tulane team has been able to get quite a bit of production out of Rowan Brumbaugh, who's been able to impact the team in so many different ways. He's their primary point guard that's been doling out about 4.8 assists per contest, 14 points per game, and he really frees up other guys to just be able to create off the ball. You've got Cam Williams, who's able to give you about 4.5 boards, 9.5 points per game. Greg Glenn throws in there 6 rebounds per game, and Caleb Banks at 6'7" has shown some really good versatility. 18.5 points, 7.5 boards, right now shooting 36% from 3-point range. This is a Tulane team that they only shoot about 34% from 3. They've dialed it back from last year. Last year they were a top 10 team with regards to total possessions per game. They're outside the top 100 this season, but this has also been a Tulane team that has done a nice job guarding the 3-point line. They are allowing opponents to shoot just over 30% from 3-point range. That's been a top 100 mark in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, this is a Temple team that they themselves at home have been able to shoot north of 36% from 3-point range, but I do think that Tulane defense, even though it does go down to an opponent's 3-point shooting percentage of more around about 34.9% away from home, it is going to be able to hold up in this spot. That'll keep them lively in this game. And again, with this Temple team, not a lot of facilitation, despite the fact that that they really don't turn the ball over a whole heck of a lot. But that said, did set my line at 2. I'm going to be willing to take those points with Tulane, and did set my total at 150. So at a 149.5, it's a maximum we'll take the over on, but we'll take the over to go along with those points. 837, 838 on the betting board. Rice, we give our Lane Kiffin go Owls. They're on the road against the Florian Atlantic Owls. So the Battle of Lane Kiffin mascot school says you've got Florian Atlantic, a 9-point favorite, and your total on this game is 148. I'll write this game up. I did take the points with Rice. I set them as a 5.5-point underdog. Florian Atlantic has just been ghastly with their defense. In terms of points allowed on a per possession basis at home, they're outside the top 320. Meanwhile, we've got a Rice team that is a top 75 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Improves to about 55th in the country in a roadside-short court environment. Biggest thing for Rice is that they do need to take better care of the ball. They've been turning the ball over nearly 13 times per contest, but Trey Bordeaux, I think, is going to be the most versatile player in this game. 13.5 points, 6 boards, 4 assists. He's not necessarily shot it well from three-point range. That's why you got Alan Ustanovich along Denver, England. These guys have been able to combine to shoot about 38.5% from three-point range. Between the two of them, you've been able to get darn near 18 points per contest, so loving what I'm seeing out of them. Additionally, you've got Caden Boom Boom Powell, who's not going to give you any versatility, but down low is giving you north of a block, 9 points, 6.5 rebounds per game, and you get to go up against a Florida Atlantic team that has really been giving up from three-point range. And home opponents are shooting north of 45% from three-point range against them. Only Eastern Michigan has a worse opponent's three-point shooting percentage at home than Florida Atlantic does thus far this season, though this is a Florida Atlantic team that's able to pop off and give you a bunch of production, as right now you've got 7 different guys that are giving you at least 8 points per contest, 8 different guys that are giving you at least 7 points per contest, so you've got a lot of just versatile guys in general for the team. Papa Miller has been able to give you about 36% three-point shooting at 6'11". He's able to supply you with about 11 points, 7 boards, 2.5 assists per game. Trey Carroll has really been the main scorer. He and Caleb Glenn both give you between 12 and 12.5 points per contest. They throw in their 4.5 rebounds per game, but this is again a Florida Atlantic team that they themselves do turn the ball over about 12 times per contest. They're a top 125 team in terms of generating turnovers as well, but this has not been a good team on the glass. They're outside the top 175 with regards to their rebound percentage, and I do think that with Rice, the way that they're going to be able to do a nice job of being able to control things on the glass, they're not allowing an overly high amount of second chance opportunities. Top 85 team with regards to rebound percentage. That's going to be able to keep them in this game despite the fact that they have had a few turnover woes this season. I did set my total at a 151.5. Florida Atlantic is a top 25 team with regards to total possessions per game. Rice styling back, they're outside the top 200 with this regard, but I do think that you get quite a bit of scoring in this game, in on the over and in on the points with Rice. Go Owls. 839, 840 on the betting board. UW Green Bay plays us at Youngstown State. Youngstown State is a favorite of 7.5 points. So on this game, it is 147, and I am all aboard Operation Fade Doug Gottlieb. I set my number at 11.5. Every team has a buy point, every team has a sell point, and boy, that buy point, it is very, very far away for me on UW Green Bay. Without Anthony Roy, who was at the time a top 2 scorer with he, along with Villanova's main man and Eric Dixon in all of college basketball, without him in the fold, this team really doesn't have a lot to speak of on offense. In terms of points scored on a per possession basis at home, they're outside the top 325. They're outside the top 300 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. This team is getting dump trucked on the glass. They're outside the top 300 with that regard as well. This team really doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities. Marcus Hall has been able to give you 13.5 points, 4 boards. He's shooting 40% from three-point range. Preston Rudiger is able to shoot about 40% from three as well. Other than that, you really don't have a lot to speak of. They brought in the international man of mystery, Mvutan Levy, but I don't think they played in the team's last game as well. He was out there for like 3 games, and he gave the team 7.5 points per contest, but I mean, man, this is UW Green Bay team that's just so poorly coached that it's not even funny, because their own coach is more concerned about their own radio show rather than coaching up the team. And now they have to prepare for a Youngstown State squad that has actually been quite solid with regards to their defense. This Youngstown State team is a legitimate top 75 team in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Now they themselves are outside the top 250 with regards to their own three-point shooting percentage. Haven't really gotten it going from the perimeter, but that said, Nico Galletti has some relatively good versatility. I like the way that he's been able to give this team north of 12 points, 5 rebounds per game, so he's been able to do a rock solid job. This has been a backcourt that has been very reliant upon EJ Farmer and his 14.5 points per game. You've been able to get a little bit more of Jawan Maxey, 2.5 assists, 9 points per contest. It is a Youngstown State team that, while their outside shooting has not been great, this has been a top 125 25 team in terms of generating turnovers. They're allowing opponents to only shoot about 31% from three-point range, and I do think that this team should be able to own the paint as well. This has been a Youngstown St team that time and time again has been able to step up in terms of just all facets of defense, and right now with the UW Green Bay team that's playing no defense to speak of, they lose their main scorer. I think that this is doomsday for UW Green Bay, so to sum my total out of 143.5, I'm going to be in on the total under for UW Green Bay. They have really not broken the 70-point plateau, same as what we saw against Robert Morris a few days ago. Ever since Anthony Roy has been on the fold, and Youngstown State has been very good defensively. So in on the under, and I'm going to be willing to lay with Youngstown. 841, 842 on the betting board. Michigan is playing us in Northwestern. Northwestern is an underdog of 9.5 to 10 points. Draw this game is between 147 to 147.5. Did set my line at 8. I'm going to be willing to take the 9+ here with Northwestern. Northwestern has been able to do a nice job of generating turnovers. Top 35 team in the country in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They are going to have a little bit of a rough time down low because you do have Vladislav Golden along with Danny Wolf, and Wolf has been a tremendous rebounder. So they will give you 13.7 boards. Here's the issue that you do have with Michigan, though. They are a team that's outside the top 300 in terms of ball security, turning the ball over north of 13.5 times per game with the way that Northwestern generates turnovers. I think that that's going to keep them lively. I do think that with Northwestern, right now they're shooting 31.5% from three-point range. That should go northward as the season goes along. Nick Martinelli along with Brooks Barnheiser have really been the heart and soul of this team. They're combining for a little bit over 38 points per contest. Barnheiser only shoots about 28.5% from three, but he does the little things. 9.5 boards, 4.5 assists, 2.4 steals per contest, and then Martinelli shoots 42% from three-point range, throws in there about 5 rebounds per game of his own, and then it's been Jalen Leach, Ty Berry, who have been your ancillary pieces. Leach has been able to give you 13 points. He shoots about mid-30s from three-point range, and Ty Berry is still shooting in the mid-30s from three-point range, but last year he was averaging about 13 points per contest before he went down with a little bit of an injury. Since he's come back, he just hasn't necessarily been himself, but guys like Matthew Nicholson and company down low have been able to do a relatively rock-solid job. I don't think that they're going to be able to compare with what you're able to get on the flip side for Michigan, as Vladislav Golden has actually been a little bit more of a scorer than Danny Wolf thus far this season, and they do have some nice ancillary three-point shooting, as this has been a Michigan team that has been able to find guys like Nabari Burnett, who's able to give you 10.5 points per contest. He's shooting north of 40% from three-point range. As a matter of fact, he's up to 50% from three-point range. Will Shutter has been able to shoot north of 40% from three. He actually did shoot 50% from three-point range a season ago, but I do think that Northwestern State going to do a relatively okay job of being able to guard the three-point arc, as Michigan has been able to do a nice job themselves. They're allowing opponents to shoot less than 30% from three-point range. This is a Northwestern team that they're allowing opponents to shoot more in that neighborhood, about 33% from three-point range. They've been about country average to slightly below average with that regard, but I do think the Northwestern going to be able to generate some turnovers. That should be able to keep them very lively in this spot, and I did set my line as a result as an 8, so I'm going to be willing to take those points with Northwestern. Did set my total at a 144. Do think that you're going to see a little bit of three-point shooting regression with this Michigan team, so also in on the under. 843, 844 on the betting board. IU Indianapolis is playing against Cleveland State. Cleveland State is a road favorite of 6 points, and your total is between 140.5 to 141. Typically, I don't take a 6-point underdog outright on the money line, but I'm willing to do so in this case for IU Indianapolis. With this Cleveland State team, I just haven't been overly impressed by them this year. Now, I will say, Abri Madiba, who comes on over from Coastal Carolina, has been able to do a better job of building out the ball recently on offense. He's had 4+ assists in 5 out of the team's last 7 games, and that has allowed this team to be a little bit better with their offense. But for Cleveland State, they still are just 298th in the country in terms of defensive rebound percentage. Opponents are grabbing north of 31% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, and this is an IU Indy team that has been a top 90 team with regards to their three-point shooting percentage. Paul Zelinkas has been able to supply the team with 17+ points per contest. He has been able to shoot it very well from three-point range. And then with this IU Indy team, I do think that they should be able to win that battle down low. Having Sean Craig give you about 10.5 points, 8 rebounds per game. You throw in there Jarvis Walker, who began his career over at Fort Wayne. He's able to give you 16 points per game. And if you get into a nip and tuck situation, this is an IU Indy team that they should have collective about 76.5% at the free throw line. They're pretty rock solid with that regard. Meanwhile, Cleveland State shoots more around about 72.5% at the free throw line, and this has been a Cleveland State team that has been able to get a bit out of the backcourt from Tevin Smith along Taj Savosky. These two guys combined for about 25.5 points per contest, with Savosky shooting 38% from 3. Smith last year shot 40% from 3. He's been down to about 26% this season, but these guys have been able to rebound a little bit more with that regard. And to the credit of Cleveland State, this has been a team that has been pretty rock solid in terms of generating second chance opportunities. This has been a team that has been in the top 125 with regards to percentage of missed shots that resulted in an offensive rebound, and they've done a really good job of wrestling the ball away as well. This is a top 35 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, but this is an IU Indy team that they only turn the ball over about 11.5 times per contest themselves, with guys like Deshaun Goody along with Alec Millender in the backcourt combining for about 14.5 points per game, and Millender shooting 45.5% from three-point range. I do think that this is going to be a bunch that gets the job done against a Cleveland State team that has been outside the top 250 in terms of opponent's three-point shooting percentage. So I do like this IU Indy team right on the money line. I did set them as a 1.5 point favorite. Did set my total 137.5. Do think that you get quite a few turnovers in this game. Cleveland State has been sketchy with their offense, outside the top 225 in terms of total possessions per game, and IU Indy outside the top 300 in terms of total possessions per game. So like the under and the money line with IU Indy. 845, 846 on the betting board. UMass is playing out to LaSalle. LaSalle is exploring a cover as they are an underdog of 2.5 points. Draw this game is 155.5 to a 156.5, and did somebody total out of 153.5. I'm in on the under. Flat out with this UMass team, they have not been able to shoot threes to save their lives all season long. This is a bottom 30 team in all of college basketball with regards to their three-point shooting percentage. UMass still a relatively solid team on the glass in terms of percentage of missed shots. They result in an offensive rebound for an opponent, though. They've ranked just 269th in the country. Meanwhile, this has been a LaSalle team that they're without a lot of size this year. They've got Deshaun Shepard, who's been able to give you 5+ rebounds per game, but even with that, they've been a top 80 team with regards to percentage of missed shots that result in an offensive rebound for opponents, only allowing opponents to reel in about 24.5, 25% of their missed shots. But this is also a LaSalle team that can be very sketchy with regards to their defense as well in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. This is a team that's well outside the top 125 with that regard. They've been able to get a lot of production out of Corey McKeithen, who's been able to supply the team with 16.5 points per contest. I was mentioning Shepard a little bit before. He throws in there about 11.5 points per game, but McKeithen shoots 39% from three-point range. Down low, Demetrius Lilly has been your main rim protector, being able to give you about 8.5 points, 7 rebounds per game, and then Julia White throws in there 10 points, 6 boards. He's improved his three-point shooting as well, but for this UMass team, what I think is going to be able to win out for them, as they did set them as a 3-point favorite in this spot, is the fact that they have been able to do a relatively solid job of being able to guard the three-point arc themselves and have been able to do a good job of being able to win the turnover battle. This is a UMass team that's outside the top 175 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis to the positive. Meanwhile, they're a top 150 team in terms of being able to generate turnovers. They do put you on the free throw line too much in terms of free throw attempts per game. They're allowing opponents to shoot north of 24.5 of them per contest. That's in the bottom 25 in all of college basketball, and they themselves do shoot about 67% at the free throw line. But that said, you've had Rashul Diggins along with Jalen Curry in the backcourt be able to combine for about 28.5 points per contest. Diggins is really the lone guy in the roster that shoots well from three, shooting 32.5% per three, if you can call that well, from three-point line. But these two guys have been able to combine for about 7 assists per contest. And then Daniel Rivera has been able to give you 8 boards. He throws in there a steal, a block, and a half per contest as well. You know that UMass is going to try to be able to play some rock-solid defense. They have been outside the top 125 in terms of points allowed on a per-possession basis. But even though they do allow a lot of second-chance opportunities, they themselves have been a top 65 team in terms of percentage of missed shots that do result in an offensive rebound. And this has been a team that has been a little bit better at being able to guard the arc than LaSalle as well. This is a LaSalle group that, in terms of opponent's three-point shooting percentage, they're allowing you to shoot about 36% from three-point in a road/neutral court environment. Meanwhile, this is a UMass team that, with regards to locking it down from three-point, they allow opponents to shoot about 31.2% from three-point at home. I think that that's going to be just enough for them to be able to get the job done on their own floor. I do think that there's some shooting positivity coming in for this UMass team, and I do think that they do just enough here on the glass to get it done against LaSalle. Did somehow line at 3, so I'm willing to lay up to 2.5 here with UMass, and I'm in on this total under. Did somehow total at a 153. 847, 848 on the betting board. Charlotte plays those to Memphis. Memphis does find themselves as a favorite of between 11.5 to 12 points. So on this game is 147. Somehow line at 11.5. So at 12 plus, I'm going to be willing to take the points. Charlotte is outside the top 225 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but we did see Memphis get bludgeoned on the glass in their last game. That's a little bit concerning. This is a Memphis team that is allowing way too many second chances. They are allowing opponents to rebound 34% of their missed shots. That is 346th in all of college basketball, and that's just inexcusable, considering the fact that you've got Dane Danger, who's been able to give you about 5.5 to 6 rebounds per game. Musa Cisse is a relatively good shot blocker down low for this team as well, but Memphis has been lackadaisical there. Now, for what they've been lacking on the interior, they've been able to do a better job of being able to lock down from three-point as the season has gone along. And if you got P.J. Haggerty, who's one of the better scorers in all of college basketball, top 10 player with regards to points per game in the country, 22.3 points, 5.5 boards, 3 assists, shoots 40.5% from 3, and then Tyrese Hunter is able to shoot 43.5% from the outside. But they do go up against a Charlotte team that does one thing well with regards to their defense. They've been able to do a nice job of being able to lock it down from three-point range. You're allowing opponents to shoot only 30.1% from 3. That's a top 40 mark in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, with this Memphis unit, they're about 157th in the country. They're allowing opponents to shoot about 33% from three-point range, and for Charlotte, this can be a little bit of a sketchy three-point shooting team, but you do have a guy that I like in Robert Braswell, who's been able to provide double figures at 6'7", 6'8". Came in from Syracuse after he began his career there. He's been able to give you about 11.5 points per contest while shooting 38.5% from three-point range. And Giancarlo Rosado is pretty much in the shadow of Vladislav Golden over at Florian Lank last season. He shot 41.5% from 3. He's able to give you a lot of versatility at 6'8", 12 points, 6 boards, 2.5 assists per game, while Nick Graves is in there, 16.5 points, 3 assists per contest. Again, it's a Charlotte team that they give up way too much on the interior, and they themselves don't generate a lot of second chances. They're outside the top 250 with regards to percentage of their missed shots that turn into an offensive rebound. And for Charlotte, it's making it take a basketball. They only generate about 9 turnovers per contest. They only get about 9 turnovers per game. In Charlotte, they are outside the top 250 in terms of total possessions per game. Meanwhile, you've got a Memphis team that is looking to run it and gun it a little bit more. With regards to this Memphis team, they're checking in about 74th in terms of total possessions per game. So, interesting spot here. At 12 plus, I'm willing to take those points with Charlotte. And I did set my total at a 147.5 because I do think that you get a lot of made threes in this game. So, in on the over, and I'm in on the points with the Charlotte team. 849, 850 on the betting board. UW Milwaukee plays us to Robert Morris. Robert Morris, a 6.5 point underdog. The last game, you're going to be finding it at a 147, and I'll write this one up as well. I'm going to be willing to lay with UW Milwaukee, set them as a 9.5 point favorite. UW Milwaukee should be able to win the battle on the glass. They are 15th in the country in terms of percentage of missed shots that turn into an offensive rebound for opponent, allowing opponents to grab only about 22.7% of their missed shots. And Michael Stillwell is one of the most dominant mid-major big men that you're going to find in the country, as he's been able to supply this team with 13.5 points, 11.9 rebounds per game. It is a UW Milwaukee team that's very much been lacking with their three-point shooting, to say the least. They shoot about 29.5% from 3. That's outside the top 325 in all of college basketball, but they've been one of the best rebounding teams in the country. And while they generate about 13.5 turnovers per game, they also turn the ball over 13.5 times per contest as well. So you've seen a lot of sloppiness in their games, but they should be able to do a better job of being able to guard the perimeter rather than Robert Morris. Robert Morris has been as well a top 125 team with regards to their rebound percentage. Alvaro Forgilius has been able to give you 10 plus rebounds per game, so he's been able to do a nice job. And then Cam Woods doesn't necessarily shoot it well from 3, but 14 plus points, 4 plus assists per contest, was missing for about 5 games earlier in the season. So Robert Morris has been relying upon him coming back, giving the team good, clean offense. But Robert Morris is only about 250th in the country in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage. UW Milwaukee has done a really good job of being able to guard the three-point arc at home. Opponents at home are only shooting about 26% for three-point range against them. That's a top 3 mark in all of college basketball. And then Thomas Folks has done a nice job giving the team 5 assists, a steal and a half per contest, all while shooting in the mid-30s from three-point range. Gatrell Polian has also been able to shoot about 34.5% from the outside with 13.5 points per game. And heck, even Stillwell shoots about 33.5% from the outside. It's more of the ancillary pieces that have not necessarily shot it well from three-point range, but UW Milwaukee does certainly have plenty of depth. They've been dealing with injuries to guys like Facion Fields and company, but even the guys like John Lovelace is able to give you better production, throwing there about 5 points per contest. I do think that UW Milwaukee is a deeper team, as I just don't know what you're going to be able to get out of some of these more depth pieces with Robert Morris, as you've been able to get double figures this season. Ryan Prather has been able to give you about 9 to 10 points per contest. Josh Emma Jaffo has been able to throw in there 11.5 points per contest as well, but Robert Morris, they themselves only shoot about 31.5% from 3 points while giving it up from 3. So this is a game where I did set UW Milwaukee as a 9.5 point favorite. I'm going to be one to lay it, and did set my total 145.5 with the way that this UW Milwaukee team guards the perimeter. I'm in on the under, and then we wrap things up with another write-up as we've got 851, 852. TCU is on the road against Baylor. Baylor is a 12.5 point favorite. Your total on this game is between 135.5 to 136. I set my total 141.5. I wrote up the over. This is a Baylor team that's currently number 1 in all of college basketball in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and it's a Baylor unit that has been one of your better three-point shooting teams in all of college basketball, especially at home. Baylor, when they're at home versus when they're on the road, just 2 completely different teams. They're shooting 39.5% for three-point range at home, more like 31.7% from three-point range when they're away from home. This has been a TCU unit that has not really found their bearings with regards to their three-point shooting. They're about 190th in all of college basketball, though Nolan Reynolds has been able to step it up quite a bit. He's been able to get the team right around 12 points, throws in their north of 3 assists per contest as they're adjusting to life without Frankie Collins, who was one of the better players in terms of generating steals in all of college basketball last few seasons. But even without him, this has been a team that has been solid with regards to their defense. I think amazing would be putting it a little bit too far, but that said, without Frankie Collins in the mix, they have given up 73 points or fewer in pretty much all but one of their games. They played that harebrained game against Arizona right after he went down, but past that, they've been able to hold up at the point of attack. You do have down low Tarzarian White, who's been able to give you about 10 points per contest at 6'6", gives you about 3.5 rebounds per game, and Brandon Wetzel is still a really nice three-point shooter at 45% from the outside, and for TCU, this has been one of the better three-point shooting defenses in all of college basketball. They're allowing opponents to shoot only in that neighborhood about 29% from three-point range, but in a road/shoot-corner environment, that does go up to closer to about 33% from three. And then you have Ernest Uday, who's been able to give the TCU team right around about 8.5 rebounds per game. A big reason why this has been one of your better rebound rate teams in terms of denying a lot of second and third chance opportunities. That said, they've been lacking a lot of those second and third chances as well. And no Chad Omier, about 15.5 points, 10.5 rebounds per game. He should be able to help this team win the battle down low along Josh Udowanja, who's been able to give you about 7.5 rebounds per game. But you throw in there Jeremy Rhodes. He's been a little bit of a disappointment this year, not going to lie. 12 points per game, but still shoots in the mid-30s from three-point range. And Jaden Nunn, he has been shooting north of 45% from three-point range. You've got Robert Wright, who's been able to throw in there 12.5 points. And VJ Edgecombe, not a great three-point shooter, but 12.5 points, 3 assists, 5.5 rebounds per game. This team is just so much more efficient at home rather than on the road. This Baylor team has been a top 55 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. I do think that they get the job done, go into inferno mode from three-point range at home, so I'm going to be writing up the over. Now with Baylor, did set them as an 11.5 point favorite. I think that we're starting to go just a little bit too far as TCU seems to be finding their bearings without Frankie Collins. So I'm going to be in on the over and the points here with TCU, and that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to Curtis Rogers, who does amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GNet_D1. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to on this podcast via that 5-star review. Coming at you guys every single day throughout the season on this podcast, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.